Lately, I've noticed a decline in my health. It's been a struggle supporting my mother-in-law through her health issues. Our family made the decision to temporarily move into her house, which marked the beginning of days filled with constant demands from my mother-in-law and brother-in-law. One day, while my husband was driving, a call came in from my mother-in-law on his cell phone. Due to poor signal, we put the call on speaker mode. Is she still alive? My mother-in-law's voice sounded weak. She's stubborn, isn't she? If I wasn't there, she might have been seriously injured or worse, my husband muttered, unaware that the call was on speaker mode. Their conversation took an alarming turn, revealing the sinister plan. Their deceitful intentions were exposed, and they were to face social penalties for their actions. My name is Wendy, and I live happily with my husband Tony and our beloved daughter Vicky. Vicky recently started kindergarten, and seeing her joy every day brings a smile to my face. Then one day, my husband received a call from my mother-in-law, Barbara. My health's been declining recently, she said weakly. Barbara had suffered a stroke in the past, leaving her with slight paralysis in her limbs. Although her symptoms weren't severe, she expressed her pain and concerns about her age and health. Barbara suggested that we all live at our place until her health stabilized. This proposition caught me off guard. I was aware that Tony's brother, Matt, lived with my mother-in-law, but Barbara expressed her discomfort with him being alone. Despite my strained relationship with Barbara, I agreed out of respect for my husband. Moving homes was a significant change, but fortunately our homes were far apart, and Vicky wouldn't need to change schools. Vicky herself seemed excited about the idea, which eased my worries. However, the reality of living with my in-laws proved to be more challenging than expected. The old house required extensive cleaning and upkeep, which fell mostly on my shoulders. While I worked tirelessly, my mother-in-law would distract Vicky with outings and reminisce about her favorite son's past achievements, leaving me feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. It was hard to reconcile her seemingly good health with her claims of poor health. I regarded my mother-in-law with suspicion, sensing an air of insincerity about her. Abruptly, she started coughing, as if startled, intensifying my skepticism. But enough about her, let's shift focus. My brother-in-law was another headache altogether. Despite the tales I'd heard, Matt turned out to be a jobless bachelor, overly reliant on his parents. His behavior was akin to that of a petulant child, despite being in his 40s. Wendy, I'm hungry. Where's my lunch? Or Wendy, why didn't you wake me up? I missed my favorite show. I found myself catering to his whims. Even my daughter Vicky pitched in around the house. His entitled attitude grated on my nerves. I'm not your wife or your mother, I silently screamed, particularly unnerved by his habit of calling me Wendy darling. Emotionally and physically drained by these two individuals, my life became a constant struggle. Yet, one evening during a family gathering, while fetching a fan to improve ventilation, I encountered an unexpected intrusion. Wendy, my brother-in-law's voice startled me from behind. With a smug grin, he uttered something utterly appalling. Why would you leave boring Tony and start anew with me? Stunned disbelief gripped me as he leered lasciviously. Perhaps fueled by alcohol, his words were disgustingly crude. Brother-in-law, you're clearly too intoxicated. That's not amusing, I retorted, attempting to dismiss his advance. Yet he persisted, threatening to reveal a fabricated secret to Tony. In a bid to escape his advances, I tried to leave, but he forcibly grabbed my arm. Enough was enough. Stop it. Just stop. I managed, startled and disgusted by his audacity. As I pulled my arm away from my brother-in-law, Matt, in a sudden movement, he lost his footing and stumbled down the stairs. His descent ended abruptly as he collided with the wall, emitting a groan upon impact. Hearing the commotion, Tony and other relatives rushed over to investigate. What's happening here? Tony inquired, concern evident in his voice. Oh, Matt just slipped, someone explained, pointing to the bump forming on the back of his head. As his mother fretted over him, other family members intervened to calm her down, guiding Matt to another room for first aid. Amidst the chaos, my altercation with Matt faded into the background. I debated whether to divulge his inappropriate advances to Tony, but ultimately chose silence, not wanting to cause unnecessary distress. With that decision weighing on my mind, I headed towards the living room, where everyone had gathered. In the hallway, I noticed Vicky, her expression etched with concern. I'm sorry if I startled you, honey. Let's get you back to bed. Okay. I reassured her, noting the subtle unease in her demeanor. Though something seemed amiss, it was late, and I opted not to probe further, guiding Vicky back to her room. Life continued to pose challenges with my mother-in-law and Matt each passing day. Forced to endure my mother-in-law's mundane chatter and tend to my brother-in-law's immature demands, I often felt the urge to escape. However, Matt refrained from making any further advances after my firm rejection, which offered a semblance of relief as I carried on with life at my in-laws. Then, on an unexpected day, another incident disrupted the routine. While having lunch with my mother-in-law, I suddenly felt dizzy after tasting some tomato soup. Almost instantly, intense nausea and breathing difficulties followed, a familiar sensation signaling anaphylactic shock, a severe reaction to peanuts. With my brother-in-law present, we promptly dialed for an ambulance, though his panicked demeanor hinted at his struggle to recall the emergency number. Eventually, he managed to place the call, and I was swiftly rushed to the hospital. Grateful for his assistance, Tony emotionally thanked his brother, acknowledging his pivotal role in saving my life. Taken aback by the unexpected praise, my brother-in-law modestly downplayed his actions, though his demeanor hinted at a newfound sense of usefulness, even in his own eyes. Despite my gratitude towards him, lingering questions gnawed at me during my hospital stay. Why had I suffered an allergic reaction? As I remained under observation for the next day, uncertainty loomed over the cause of the incident. Discharged from the hospital without complications, I slid into the car beside Tony, ready to return to my in-laws' house. In the back seat, Vicky's worried voice broke the silence. "Are you okay, Mom?" "I'm fine now, sweetheart. I'm sorry for causing you concern," I reassured her, grateful for her care. "I thought my heart was going to stop when I heard you were in the hospital," she confessed, her concern palpable. "I was careful with those ingredients, though," I assured her, tilting my head, trying to lighten the mood. However, Tony's ringing phone interrupted our conversation, and he swiftly switched to speakerphone, navigating through the connectivity issues. As my mother-in-law's voice crackled through the speaker, her troubled tone was unmistakable. "Seems the call got cut off," she lamented to my brother-in-law, Matt. Their ensuing conversation left us all visibly unsettled. "She's still alive. She's really stubborn, isn't she?" my mother-in-law remarked callously, prompting Tony to defend me, albeit unheard by her. Their dialogue took a chilling turn, revealing a disturbing lack of empathy. "Does it matter? It's just karma for hurting my precious Matt," my mother-in-law callously remarked, her words sending a shiver down my spine. "So what are we going to do about Wendy?" Matt inquired, his tone unnervingly casual. "Yeah, I'll try to win her over again. I think I can make it work this time," he replied, his nonchalant attitude exacerbating my unease. "I mean, she probably fell for me again after this incident. After all, I'm her lifesaver, aren't I?" Matt's boastful voice filled the room, oblivious to the fact that their conversation was overheard. Meanwhile, Tony and I exchanged speechless glances, taken aback by their unsettling discussion. Later, when we finally arrived at my in-laws' house, it was evident that we were behind schedule. "You should manage your time better, Tony. And why didn't you answer the phone? I needed you to pick something up on your way back," my mother-in-law scolded, seemingly oblivious to the tension in the air. Tony and I, however, wore stern expressions, unable to ignore the gravity of what we had just heard. Once inside, Tony and I pulled my in-laws aside for a serious conversation. As our daughter retreated to her room, I handed Tony's phone to my in-laws, playing back the recorded conversation that had been captured unknowingly. Their faces turned pale with shock as the truth unfolded before them. "How did you?" my mother-in-law began, but I silenced her with a glare demanding answers. "What in the world is going on here?" I pressed, my tone firm and unwavering. Attempting to defuse the situation, my brother-in-law stuttered. "Well, that was just a joke. Sort of a small payback for you rejecting Matt." "Don't mention my brother-in-law," Tony interjected, attempting to shield his family from further embarrassment. But it was too late. As I explained the situation to Tony, his gentle demeanor gave way to fury. He demanded answers, and under his relentless questioning, my in-laws finally confessed. It turned out that my mother-in-law had orchestrated a plan to set me up with Matt, who seemed disturbingly willing to go along with it. Feigning illness, she had lured me to their house with the intention of turning me into her son's fiancé. The absurdity of their scheme chilled me to the bone. Their lack of empathy was astounding, driven by their misguided pity for Matt's single status. Their actions seemed beyond comprehension, almost inhuman. Their selfish scheme had backfired spectacularly, with Matt tumbling down the stairs in a pitiful manner. Recalling the event sent shivers down my spine, especially considering something my brother-in-law had said that lingered in my mind. What secret about me were you using as a threat? With a hesitant glance at my husband, he reluctantly confessed, revealing that it was about the 50 I had tucked away. They had wrongly assumed it was from secretive financial endeavors like stock trading or foreign exchange. In reality, it was earnings from my writing hobby, known and approved by my husband, who always emphasized the value of hard-earned money. It turned out my brother-in-law had stumbled upon my bank book during a visit and shared his discovery with my mother-in-law, sparking their ill-conceived plot. She, fueled by revenge for my rejection of Matt and his subsequent injury, conspired with him to sabotage my lunch with peanut powder, hoping to retrieve the money later. However, Matt's fear and guilt overwhelmed him when he saw the extent of my suffering, prompting him to call for help. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law had been futilely trying to extract the bank account passcode from Vicky, manipulating her with absurd tales about my supposed wrongdoing and threats of police involvement. On that day, the mystery behind Vicky's strange behavior towards me was unraveled. Confronting my mother-in-law, I couldn't fathom the shamelessness of her actions, manipulating her own grandchild and attempting to steal her younger brother's wife. I never imagined you were capable of such foolishness. Tony's voice rang with anger and disbelief, his fists clenched with rage. Matt, seemingly stung by the blow to his pride, shot back, "Don't get cheeky just because you're my younger brother. I'm way more handsome than you. If I had met Wendy before you did, she would have definitely married me." Tony's fury only intensified at Matt's audacity, but I found myself even angrier than my husband. "You've got to be kidding me. Tony is a decent human being, unlike you. There's no way I would marry a deluded jerk like you even if hell froze over." I snapped, my words dripping with disdain. "You middle-aged narcissist, grow up and stop adding darling to my name." As I unleashed a barrage of insults, Matt visibly shrank under my scathing glare. Regaining my composure, I spoke in a calm but firm voice. "Your actions have crossed the line. I nearly died. I'll be filing a criminal complaint for assault. You'll pay for the damages." Their faces drained of color, Tony and Matt fell to the ground, pleading with trembling voices, begging us to drop the lawsuit. "We didn't think you'd be hurt that badly," they stammered, their voices desperate. "Forgive us. We're family, right?" As Tony and I exchanged glances, considering their pleas, Vicky entered the room, clearly unsettled by the commotion. My mother-in-law, attempting to deflect attention, forced a smile and ushered Vicky away, saying, "Come on, Vicky, we're a little busy right now. Let's go back to your room." At that moment, the gravity of the situation sunk in even deeper. I called out to my daughter, hoping for some clarity. "Did you happen to mention Mommy's peanut allergy to Grandma?" I asked gently. "Yes, she told me to tell her about you," my daughter replied hesitantly. "So I said that even one peanut would make it impossible for you to breathe, and you'd die." As I stroked my daughter's head, I cast a cold glare at the two of them. "There's no room for sympathy here. Accept your social sanctions quietly," I said firmly. Stunned, they fell silent, realizing the consequences of their actions. Later, we hired a lawyer and informally charged my mother and brother-in-law with assault. Though they didn't end up in prison due to it being a family dispute, they had to pay about 13 grand for my medical expenses and compensation. Without any savings to cover this, they were forced to sell their family home for cash. Now homeless, they made an audacious proposal to move in with us. "What kind of nonsense are you spouting?" I retorted, incredulous. "Talk in your sleep if you must." We heard later that they rented a room in a rundown apartment, living a tough life on the wages my brother-in-law earns from his part-time job. Meanwhile, we returned to our own home, breathing a sigh of relief. "I'm sorry for deciding to live together," I admitted, feeling guilty for the ordeal we had endured. "Don't worry about it. It's your seriousness that I like. That's why I married you," Tony reassured me, despite his dejection. Moved by his words, I continued, "You looked brave and cool when you punched Matt. Violence isn't good, though." Tony chuckled sheepishly, holding our daughter close. "That's right," he agreed. "How about we all go out for some fun next week, Vicky? Where do you want to go?" "The zoo?" Vicky exclaimed with excitement, her laughter filling the room. In that moment, I vowed to continue saving for my daughter's future, cherishing the happiness we have found together.